It was a beautiful, peaceful night. Zara had spent the evening catching up with a friend at a local restaurant. They hugged goodbye, and Zara began the short, less than 10-minute walk home. She couldn't have known that this walk would be her last. A predator lurked in the shadows, silently waiting for his next victim, and that victim was Zara. Zara Alina was the eldest of 5 children, raised by a single mother in a household filled with women, her grandma, aunts, and sisters. Her grandparents, originally from Pakistan, made the monumental move to the UK in 1968, seeking a better life. For Zara's family, education was paramount. Even though they didn't have much, they instilled in the young women of their family the importance of being well educated. Zara dreamed of becoming a lawyer, an advocate for women's rights. She firmly believed that no woman should fear walking home alone at night, and that every woman had the liberty to do as she pleased, free from the terror of monsters on the street. This sentiment was deeply important to Zara throughout her life, shared passionately with her friends who also championed women's safety and rights. Zara was described as selfless, caring, and a breath of fresh air. She loved tap dancing, ballet, and traveling. Beyond her passions, she was the full-time caregiver for her grandma and mother, and also worked with refugees seeking shelter from violence in the UK. Zara was legendary. Just 5 weeks before the events of this case, Zara secured a job as a solicitor at the Royal Courts of Justice. Her aunt Farah told her she would one day be a formidable force, and Zara certainly was. Zara was truly a hero. But heroes aren't invincible, no matter what comic books and movies might lead you to believe. And Zara was about to become one of the very victims she tried so hard to protect. On the 25th of June, after finishing her work at the Royal Courts of Justice, Zara had plans to meet up with her friend at a local pub called the Great Spoon of Ilford. Interestingly, as the two friends were enjoying dinner and conversation, a man in the restaurant began causing a disturbance. He was harassing a woman who was simply trying to enjoy her meal and was eventually removed from the establishment by security. It was a strange incident, but nothing that seemed like a real cause for concern. After the commotion settled, Zara and her friend returned to their evening. Everything went well. They had a wonderful time, vowed to meet up again soon, and then parted ways. It was a short walk to her home, and Zara wasn't afraid of walking home at night. She had done it before, and the path was well lit, so there was nothing to worry about. However, this time, everything took a turn for the worse. There was a man who lived near Zara, known as a bit of a creep. Zara didn't know him personally, but many people in the area did, and they all did their best to avoid him. The man in question is 29-year-old Jordan McSweeney. I'll say this up front. He was a stranger to Zara, but not to the Metropolitan Police. Jordan had approximately 69 offenses on his record, with 28 convictions. His history included theft, petty crime, assault on civilians and police, and aggravated harassment. He had been an outlaw since his teenage years, stemming from an unstable family background and exposure to various forms of abuse. Instead of seeking the help he needed, he turned to a life of crime, spending more time on the streets or in prison than at home. Simply put, Jordan was a nightmare for women. Not long after one of his countless releases from prison, he began harassing women on the streets following them, acting inappropriately, and generally being a menace. If a woman was enjoying a peaceful evening at a restaurant or walking on the sidewalk, Jordan was likely to ruin her day in the worst way, leaving her traumatized. Now, you might be thinking, why do I care about this Jordan guy? Well, it turns out he was the man who was kicked out of the restaurant Zara was visiting earlier that night. After being removed from the restaurant, Jordan was captured on CCTV, staggering on the busy road, narrowly avoiding being hit by cars and buses. It turns out, Jordan shouldn't have been roaming the streets to begin with, and certainly shouldn't have been at that restaurant. He had actually been released from prison on the 17th of June, just a couple of days before the attack on Zara. He was living with a friend at Valentine's Park. Although out of prison, he was soon due to go back behind bars because he failed to show up for meetings with his probation officer. Yet, he was never tracked down by the police, nor did his probation officer consider Jordan being a no-show suspicious, so they basically let him get away with it. The police already knew this man was a danger to society, yet they allowed him to walk the streets as if he posed no threat. If anyone shouldn't have been out on the streets of Ilford, it was Jordan. Because of the police's monumental negligence, a dangerous man was free to do whatever he pleased, and you can already tell he was up to no good. Before long, Jordan spotted a woman walking back home on Cranbrook Road. She was alone, the perfect target for him. He began walking closely behind her, breathing down her neck. The poor woman, who had noticed him by now, just wanted him to leave her alone. She tried to lose Jordan by walking into a busy shop, but he followed her inside. He had to leave, however, because there were too many eyes on him, and he couldn't act on his plan. But as much as I hate to say this, the woman wasn't free from Jordan's evil clutches yet. After spending a few minutes in the shop, she made her way out and resumed her walk home, thinking she had lost Jordan. But within seconds, like the devil himself, Jordan emerged and was in close pursuit. Jordan had actually been hiding outside the shop, waiting for the woman to reappear. This woman was tormented by Jordan for over 20 minutes. It's safe to assume these must have been the worst 20 minutes of her life, but luckily, she was able to lose him in the end and made it home, unscathed albeit, severely traumatized and shaken. But was Jordan done? Of course not. He was still out on the streets, pestering women, minding their own business and messing with them. At one point, he even went into a chicken shop and made a female employee extremely uncomfortable by being publicly inappropriate. A little before 2 a.m., after leaving the chicken shop, Jordan found another woman to terrorize on the street and followed her. What was so infuriating was that two men on the other side of the street witnessed this scene, but chose to do nothing to stop him or help the woman in distress. If only Jordan had been stopped here, things wouldn't have taken such a grim turn. I'm telling you right now, there are a lot of what-ifs in this case. So many you'll probably lose count. Anyway, at one point, Jordan was walking across the street from the woman. He picked up speed and overtook the terrified woman. His plan was to wait for her in a dark driveway and pounce at the right moment. But luckily, her house was near, and she made it home safely too. Jordan was left feeling angry at this point. He hadn't managed to get his hands on a defenseless woman yet, so he decided to strike one final time. And this time, he crossed paths with none other than Zara Alina. When Zara reached Cranbrook Road, just a couple of minutes from her home, she was noticed by Jordan, who decided to act on his evil plan. Zara didn't see Jordan, and sadly, she never would get the chance to. Jordan came up behind an unsuspecting Zara and immediately grabbed her. He subdued her almost instantly and threw her to the ground. Keep in mind, this is all happening in front of someone's house, in their driveway. Jordan was so emboldened and arrogant that he didn't care if anyone saw him by this point. After this, Zara was tragically taken advantage of and attacked multiple times. Due to the severe assault, Zara lost consciousness within minutes, but Jordan wasn't done yet. Zara sustained multiple serious injuries to her head as a result of the attack. And I don't think I need to go into detail about how this monster basically pummeled Zara into unconsciousness. The mind-boggling attack on Zara lasted for 9 minutes. Jordan left after he was disgustingly satisfied, stealing Zara's belongings and clothes and later abandoning them nearby. A badly injured and barely conscious Zara was later found by strangers walking down Cranbrook Road a couple of minutes after Jordan made a run for it. They immediately called emergency services because Zara was barely clinging to life. Paramedics arrived at the scene and rushed a barely conscious and gravely injured Zara to Royal London Hospital. Zara had endured a ton of injuries to her head and body and was barely breathing by now. Unfortunately, on the 26th of June, at around 10 a.m., after being in intensive surgery for more than 5 hours, 35-year-old Zara Alina succumbed to her wounds. Her evening started so lively, but it ended in complete tragedy. Zara lost her life for simply walking home from a restaurant to her home, which is so messed up and devastating. In the meantime, the police were on the same road where Zara was found, which had turned into a crime scene following Zara's passing, and they were basically at a loss. They didn't know who could have done this to Zara. Their best bet was to start with witnesses and perhaps CCTV footage if they were lucky. Well, they were lucky, because the streets of Ilford had tons of security cameras, and the house in front of which Zara was attacked also had a surveillance camera. So that's where the police started. Within no time, the police saw what they believed was the most traumatic and gut-wrenching scene caught on camera. The residential security camera recorded the whole attack on Zara. The long 9 minutes in which Zara fought for her life while a stranger subjected her to torture were all caught on camera. It was too much heaven for the police, but they at least had a visual of the perpetrator. At the crime scene, a couple of fingerprints were left, so the police gathered those as evidence. Luckily, those fingerprints came back as a match to Jordan McSweeney because, remember, he was a well-known name in the criminal database, so that was easy. Next, the police checked neighboring CCTV cameras, and they saw everything Jordan had done a couple of hours prior, terrorizing multiple women, following Zara and attacking her, and then making his way to Valentine's Park, just off Cranbrook Road. The park surveillance footage showed Jordan speed walking towards the fun fair after Zara's attack with a bag in hand. But after a couple of minutes, Jordan was seen shirtless and empty-handed when coming out of the fun fair tent. The police knew they had their man, so they got to the park on the 27th of June, 2022. A day after Zara's brutal and senseless attack, Jordan McSweeney was arrested and charged with the assault and murder of 35-year-old Zara Alina. The detectives also broke the news of Zara's passing, and her grandmother remembers everything all too vividly, and how could she not? She was the one who identified Zara on the CCTV footage, trying to escape the clutches of a monstrous stranger. The news of Zara's passing shocked everyone to the core. A woman who was courageous and loved by many had been a victim of a stranger, attacked in the same way as the many women in the news that Zara saw with her friends and family time and time again. That motivated her to try to change the world, but sadly, she would never get that chance. And she too became one of the victims that she was trying so desperately to save. When the police arrested Jordan, they also retrieved the bag he was seen carrying in the surveillance footage. Sure enough, inside the bag was the same gray prison-issued vest and Jordan's shoes, both of which had Zara's DNA on them, further linking him to the crime scene. So, why did Jordan attack Zara? This was the main question the police had. They were both strangers, so what compelled him to attack an innocent woman who was minding her own business? Well, Jordan, instead of owning up to his crimes, decided to blame everything on his split personality disorder. He admitted that he was under the influence of ADHD medication at the time of Zara's attack, and that he was not himself when he attacked her. He was unfazed by his actions, emotionless to the core, and not remorseful at all for taking an innocent woman's life, all because he had perverse desires. In the end, Jordan did plead guilty to the charges, which was fortunate because Zara's family wouldn't have to go through the painful process of a trial, and they would have given anything to never lay their eyes on the horrific CCTV footage of Zara's final moments again. But Jordan chose not to show up to any of his hearings, or even his sentencing. He simply refused to leave his prison cell for his sentencing, and his reasoning will make you want to pull your hair out. Jordan didn't want to come to court for his sentencing because he didn't want to relive the incident. I mean, it isn't even his incident to relive. It is because of him that this incident occurred in the first place. This pathetic man didn't even think twice before ending Zara's life in the worst way imaginable, as well as terrorizing other innocent women on the street. And now he wants to pretend that he's ashamed or something. Ultimately, on the 14th of December, 2022, Old Bailey Court Judge Mrs. Justice Chima Grubb sentenced Jordan McSweeney to life imprisonment with a minimum of 38 years. He was also given a concurrent sentence of 4 years for assault. Mrs. Justice Chima Grubb called out Jordan for not facing the music and called him spineless, which pretty much describes the perpetrator perfectly. But if you thought this was the end of Jordan McSweeney and his antics, well, you would be wrong. Not long ago, in October 2023, Jordan appealed for a reduction in his prison sentence. By some weird, bizarre loophole, in the end, and you won't be happy hearing this, Jordan's prison sentence was reduced from a minimum of 38 years to 33 years. This means that Jordan will be eligible for parole in October 2053. But surely, any judge with half a brain would never ever let this man out on parole. But that remains to be seen. The truth is, the attack on Zara was like scraping an old wound. London, or more generally the UK, had seen a lot of random attacks on women that resulted in their tragic passing. Sarah Everard, Libby Squire, and now Zara Alanathe public was outraged and had basically lost faith in law enforcement agencies. It was because of their neglect and disinterest that Jordan was out and free, roaming the streets of London when he should have been in prison. The police assessed Jordan, and even though he had a truckload of offenses and convictions against him, he was still considered a medium risk by the police. Let that sink in. Well, I hope the police were at least surprised, if not ashamed, at the fact that the very convict they assessed to be medium risk literally trampled a woman to death. A lot of people were also angry at bystanders who just let Jordan do whatever he wanted to women, especially Zara. Zara obviously screamed at the top of her lungs for help in a very public place, and no one even came to help or called the police, even though the crime literally took place outside someone's home. It wasn't like it was in a remote area where there was no one as far as the eye could see. It was a residential area, and still, no one bothered to help Zara. Zara's family is devastated by the loss of their bright and beautiful girl because she was a fearless woman who would have brought changes to the system and helped represent women who are too scared to speak out. Zara would have been a force to be reckoned with. And now that she is not here, her family is just numb. Her aunt, Farah, is still stuck in time. She is frozen in shock and numb from the pain. Every day, the Alina family wakes up and realizes that Zara is gone, and that realization just breaks their hearts all over again. Zara watched the news of women getting attacked with pain on her face, and she vowed to do something about it, one step at a time. But tragically, she was unable to do so, and instead of making a change, Zara's name joined the list of countless women who were attacked by random monsters lurking in the streets. Following Zara's tragic passing, her house had become a memorial of sorts. Strangers were leaving flowers, kind and supportive messages, and their condolences for the grieving family. Violence against women is increasing at an alarming rate as the days go by. We're living in 2025 now, and things are pretty much the same for women, although there has been some positive progress and changes, but there is still a long way to go. When will women, or anyone for that matter, be safe to walk the streets of their city without looking over their shoulders? I just hope Zara's family is doing okay after time has passed. But how can anyone be okay when their loved one loses their life like that, without any explanation or provocation? It is devastating, and my heart goes out to Zara's family and loved ones, who had so much more to achieve and look forward to in her life.